YouTube. So this morning, this is part of a new series I'm doing on suicide prevention. Today I'm talking about, in brief, emotional relearning. So as I put in the description, this is often used in recovery of PTSD patients, or well, we use it every day. In actual fact, it's just not taught to us. So how we reframe things in general matters. Okay, now this is really important for strength and mental well-being, because those that follow through from depression sadly to ending their life will really struggle with this concept, because they're not able to reframe a situation. So they think, oh, I'm a burden of others, I want out of this world, it's too late for me. And there are so many thoughts going through their head, and what they're not able to do is lean on the rational side of the brain and reframe a situation to not positivity, but put things into perspective. And when you're a counsellor or you go to counselling, that's what happens. You, in one way, you lay out your cards on the table and you talk through what's happened. And certainly with PTSD patients, they heal quite fast. Well, not completely, but because the memories are always there in the brain. The brain needs to soothe, it needs love. So when we talk about things, it does that. And the idea of emotional relearning is that you talk about the event with somebody and you work through it, which is talking therapies in a nutshell. And this is a very important skill that's not taught us in our lives. And there's so much data on this that when you look at depression rates in America and around the world, we're shifting towards very high levels of stress and anxiety that falls onto depression. Okay, now not everybody, if you're a professional and you're familiar with the PH9 scale, it's not always. I mean, there are other metrics and systems that mental health professionals use. The problem I think we have when we look at not just suicide levels, when you down further in managing our own stress and anxiety, we're just not very good at it. So the idea for me is to produce a new series, a new curriculum, worldwide, globally, slowly, and educate people on managing their brains and behaviours, which is your emotional intelligence. But emotional relearning is a strong part of that. And like I said, a lot of people struggle with trying to reframe things because someone might have let them down, or they just don't feel valued in this world. And it's always, not always, but sometimes it can be people that we least expect. They're just a laugh and joke at a party. They're always happy in appearance, but inside here, there's more going on. And I think we need to do a lot more as a global society in terms of, because there's only, I've counted it, 38,000 of us working in suicide prevention on LinkedIn. That's the global population of the workforce in one way. So that's not a lot considering there's 8 billion people on this planet. It's incredibly, I would say, from what I'm learning, a tough industry, rewarding as others are, as being a nurse and a doctor. But the reality is that the levels are getting too high and it's worrying. So hence my educational talks on emotional relearning. Now, emotional relearning is something I've used myself in my own personal journey. I did suffer abuse as a child. I've been through a lot myself. I do suffer with a long-term condition that's very closely related to PTSD called non-epileptic attack disorder. It's an incredibly difficult condition to treat because it's these are triggered off by stress and anxiety, and the psych that it was based on my childhood trauma. Now, that's probably quite true because it was bad. Counselling and more my own research, how to reframe things, acceptance that it wasn't my fault. For that's the first learning point, and that's really difficult skill to teach to everybody worldwide when you've got so much pressure of the worldview, which is, things like the war in Ukraine, which is not the worldview, but it's world problems. And you wake up every single day and you're faced with that, and then you've got to deal with your own personal emotions. So this is the complexities of living today, okay? Today, because we're in a dark world at the moment, and we've always been etching towards that. And now the data is getting even more scary. So being able to look at things from a different perspective and reframe it ourselves will allow us to safeguard away from those thoughts of ending our life when things get really tough. So this is really important. And the best way I could explain maybe is to give you, my example in short. So I was sad years old, and it never caused me to think I wanted to end my life. But 2 years ago, all the events that were happening around me did, okay, because my childhood was bad. I saw a lot of violence, and then where I was living, I was experiencing violence and being threatened, and that will play a lot heavy on the brain, okay, because when we've had a memory in the past and something fresh comes in there, so the brain it's scared, and then you go into the fight or flight response. So it's very difficult to try and reframe that situation and put yourself in a safe zone. And things like calling the police and working with victim support will absolutely help. But we don't have enough of those services to do that for everybody, and we shouldn't have that situation because we need to be into a situation where we're managing our stress and anxiety at a safe level. Now, we can't always control what happens. Someone's coming towards us, wants to fight us, an assault, we go to the shop, loads of different situations. But the best thing to do, really, in short, is to put yourself in a safe situation. So you're saving your brain from exercising those thoughts of wanting to maybe end your life when things get really tough. But when you work it all the way back, and what I've been trying to talk about all week is waking up every single day and being thankful because I don't have a purpose in my life. And that is a slippery road for a lot of us. So my advice, and I've learned this myself, is to get up every single day and be thankful. So what I'm trying to say is I'm reframing. We're looking at suicide prevention per se because when someone does sadly take their in their life, they're at a very high level of loss. Okay, and we don't exactly know every single thought in their what they're going through specifically before they go. So we have to channel it back and see what kind of emotions we experience for our lifetime. We can't always control the outside event, but we bond. It's not as easy as saying you have to be more positive. It doesn't work that way. You have to talk through things because the sensors in the brain and the way that it's, and we're still learning about the brain, it needs comfort. Like PTSD patients that have seen, and it's not always soldiers, I've seen traumatic events, I've had flashbacks, I don't anymore. Um, the brain needs to heal. So the idea of emotional relearning is at something to somebody, um, that's not always going to be a professional because we just don't have enough, and we need to get manage it ourselves. Okay, so you look at consciously yourself and right, okay, why am I thinking this way? Oh, now I understand. Oh, that person had a day, and that's why I feel negative. And then maybe get a pen and paper out and write out how you feel. Emotional or healing through writing is a very powerful tool, by the way. So there's lots of things in there we can do before we get to the high levels of anxiety, of not wanting to be in this world. Okay, so I hope I've given you a very small glimpse about some of the principles and concepts that I think will help a lot of people in terms of managing their own mental well-being before they go to the higher level anxiety and having those thoughts of wanting to, plan to end their life. And it's some of it is different triggers, some of it is social media, and I know I haven't looked at the numbers recently, but if somebody, there was self harming a trend on Instagram. I think it was about maybe a year, 2 years ago. People as young as 13, sadly, are self harming because they think it's fashionable, and it's a very dangerous game because at that age the brain is still learning and evolving. And some of my new early data suggests that people watching TikTok at the age of 13 are very, very sensitive about the content that comes through. And one of the downfalls of TikTok, sadly, is that it's getting better, is that the algorithm will push you that particular video constantly if you've looked at it for more than a couple of seconds. And there is no really ID check. So you have to safeguard your children as well. And that's pretty tough. So you can't blame social media. It is the content and the feelings. Why are we putting that negative, someone throwing a dog off a bus and or something? Yeah, as bad as that. And I've seen videos like that on TikTok. What's that human thinking about by creating that piece of content and putting it on there? And that's really about, this is deep, you know, neuroscience, as well as, looking at psychology about why somebody wants to create a vile horrible video. So I've gone a bit off here there, but I thought it was important to mention that because I think we have to look at this at many different angles. It's very hard to simplify why anybody wants to end their life. There's so many different factors to consider, but I'm hoping today I'll give you a glimpse around emotional relearning and trying to find out more, you know, a curriculum around suicide prevention. This is more really towards early mental well-being management. Okay, so I've called it suicide prevention series because I think it needs, we're thinking at the high end scale. When we when you go into Google, you get Samaritans, but in an ideal world, we need a better curriculum around mental well-being. I'll do my best on these videos and shape out as much content as possible, but I am only one person, and I know there's many other people doing great work, but we need collaboration on this, and that's why I've started to reach out to as many mental health professionals or suicide prevention professionals in the industry as possible. So I'll end the conversation now. Thanks for joining me. It's not easy sometimes doing these talks because I'm attached. I've been through a lot myself, and it saddens my heart when somebody does take their life. Yeah, it's sad, but we can be positive in our own reframing. To put out there videos like this and information that will help companies, brands, everybody, schools, colleges, all, we're all in this together. we're all human, and when we get that concept in, I think we've got a much better chance of saving lives, but also creating a better education system around mental fitness, as I prefer to call it, rather than mental health. Um, yeah. Anyway, I've spoken enough. Thank you so much for joining me. It's pretty good out there in Eastbourne. The weather's good, just to let you know. And yeah, I hope you have a great day, everybody. And yeah, I'll see you soon on or tomorrow on my next live talk. Thank you so much. Bless you. Bye for now.